an ass whooping, a beatdown, a mauling. I don't care what you call it. The Celtics handled their business against the New York Knicks after raising banner 18 into the rafters, receiving their championship rings, which look dope, by the way, big, but dope. We're going to talk about all that and more on today's Taylor Talk Celtics. What's up, everybody? If you're new here, my name is Adam Taylor. I cover the Boston Celtics for SB Nation, USA Today, and the Celtics Chronicle newsletter. Links in the description below. Get Celtics content sent straight to your inbox pretty much every day. We're going to talk about last night's game. I don't think anyone else who's talking about the Celtics right now is going to be talking about anything different, and I'm no different either. This was one made free away from being a historic night for two reasons rather than just one. It didn't end that way. The Celtics kind of pressed a little bit towards the end. Clearly, they were aware they were trying to make history. They go down tied for most threes in the game with the Milwaukee Bucks. And I'm okay with that.
The whole crowd was chanting, one more three. We tried our best, man. We missed like 15 in a row, but we were taking great shots. Ball was moving, finding the right guy. We just couldn't get it to go. So sorry about that, boss.
There's a lot of history being made yesterday. Banner 18, 16-year drought over. Obviously, everyone's had the summer to compartmentalize what went down last year, to do their celebrating. But it's always nice to see how the players react in that moment when they're getting their rings, when the banner's being raised. And there's always questions about how they're going to bounce back from a celebration like that into a game, right? And for me, I was more interested in how they went against New York in terms of knowing the Knicks are short in terms of depth. You know, they've only got 12 players on their roster right now. 3 two-way guys make it 15. There's 3 open roster spots. The Knicks also came into the game without Precious Achiuwa, without Mitchell Robinson, so they were super short in terms of center depth. That's why we saw Jericho Sims play. Sims played a few times last year. I think he played 45 games for the Knicks last year. Didn't suit up once against Boston. And that tells you everything you need to know in terms of where Tibbs thought Sims was in his development and whether he could hang with the Celtics. Sims made a bit of an impact, but the depth behind him in the big position wasn't really there. Seeing the Celtics stick to their game plan and, you know, getting up the amount of threes that they got up, they took 60, they took 61 threes. That's wild. That's crazy against New York. So they clearly didn't adjust in the way everybody probably assumed they would once they heard Achiuwa was out. The obvious idea is get the ball in the post, work the paint, crash the glass, look for second chance points, really bully people with size, with explosiveness around the rim, because New York just wouldn't have had an answer there when Cat wasn't on the floor. Celtics went a different way. They're like, no, we're going to keep our 5-out system in the play. We're going to take a bunch of threes. We're going to set them up with entry actions, with early offense, smart movement, smart cuts, and then we're just going to take the best shot available, and we're going to bet on ourselves that we can shoot better than you can shoot. That's a bet they made most games last season, and it's a bet they won more often than not, helped lead them to a championship. I personally think their defensive identity was the differentiator last year. I think it'll be the differentiator again this year. But what a shooting performance, man. So 29 made threes on 61 attempts, 47.5% from the field. That's wild. That's a lot of threes, and that's a lot of made threes. Probably a bit of an outlier. I'm not going to say it's a huge outlier because they'll shoot 40 to 45 threes a game quite comfortably, 35, 40, 41, 42, around that range. Quite comfortably. They'll shoot 35 to 45% quite comfortably. There'll be games where the ball don't drop, and we've seen that. And the difference last year to other years is when the ball isn't dropping from deep, they don't fold, they just adjust. And that's when you see them getting to the rim more, you go into the post more, play off the elbows, play off the mid-block. They didn't have to do that here. There was some nice drives to the rim. I think Tatum showed that not only has he improved his three-point shot, but he can also attack a bit more getting downhill. He could split defenses, very willing to use his shoulders and his size to hold guys off. We saw Sam Hauser flashing that off the dribble kind of attack the closeout, pull up mid-range game. He flashed that during preseason. He had a really nice bucket in this game where he was on the left side. I think it was the left side corner. Gets the ball, pump fakes, sells his man. I think it's 2 free dribbles in and then just a pull up midi. It was cash. I think it was just net. That's a huge improvement for him. Like in terms of just shot development and shot selection, being able to be like, yo, I'm one of the best movement shooters in the NBA, period. It's a couple of guys better than him, but one of the best, or at least on his level. If we don't want to say better than him, at least on his level. Now he can be like, yo, I'm more than just a 3-point shooter. So if you close out to me hard, I'm going to put the ball on the floor. I'm going to attack you that way. If you sag off and expect or kind of anticipate me driving, I'm just going to catch and shoot. It just gives him another wrinkle, which in turn gives the Celtics a whole extra dimension when they're playing on their 5-out, when they're running him off stagger screens, single screens, asking him to curl, whatever it may be. It's just an extra option. So I was really excited to see that from Sam Hauser. I thought that was a nice little wrinkle. Obviously, he's not the story of the game. I think every player, I'm not going to go through these guys one by one because one, that would be boring as shit. And two, we'd be here for a while. I want to be here for a while. Because I don't want to keep everybody all day. There's a lot of Celtics content out there today. I understand I'm starting to rebuild this channel. There's going to be people that are seeing it for the first time. And there's going to be people that just want to go and rock with who they rock with. So, I'll get in where I fit in. We got Jason Tatum, 14 of 18 from the field, 8 of 11 from 3-point range, 37 points, 10 assists, 4 rebounds. The thing that stuck out to me first, and I'm not trying to be negative here because I think he was excellent, he's going to average way more rebounds than 4 a game, and there's going to be triple-double watches quite consistently. His passing was ridiculous. There was a one-handed, left-handed, I think it was, like bullet scoop pass. He had another one where he kind of, it was a broken play off a missed shot. Tatum gets the ball at the perimeter. I think Jrue Holiday is in the dunker spot, just fires a rifle pass straight in there. Just a complete bullet. There was another one where he made a read off his right hand, again into the far side corner. I think he skipped 2 defenders and 2 Celtics players, so I'd call it a skip pass. Couple of really high-level passes from Tatum, and he'd added that to his game last year. He was a high-level playmaker. I think that the improvements in his 3-point shot, the way he's removed that hitch, his pickup point's a bit higher up, his entire shot motion is just more fluid, quicker release. With those improvements, and by the looks of it, there's been a little bit of a level step in terms of being the types of passes he's looking to make and can make. Coupled with his rebounding ability, there's going to be a lot of triple-double watches this season. MVP year, maybe. Too early to say. It's been 1 game. It's too early to say anything right now. So as the season goes on, we'll look at numbers, we'll look at stats. But for right now, there's no point. It's pointless. This is all vibes, baby. We're running out of vibes today. And I'm cool with that. I'm down for the vibes check. I really liked what Tatum did. He screened well. There's a couple of plays where he operated as a roll man, a couple of plays where he operated as an off-ball screen guard. Defended well, rotated well. The Celtics did a really good job of trying to keep Luke Cornett out of actions. They'd scram switch off him, they'd pill switch just to keep Cornett closer to the paint. Tatum played a role in that, not so much being the guy that would peel switch or scram switch for him, but somebody that was vocalizing coverages, calling out where Cornett would need to recover to after a switch had taken place. Just little details that showcase like that is his form of leadership, right? He's going to lead by example. He's going to make sure everyone's in their spots. Just played very free. Right? And obviously, I keep saying, right? Obviously, he just won a ring, feeling good, feeling himself a little bit. Started off in rhythm. Some shots are falling. Played really well. But for me, there was little moments of leadership in there that you don't really see. And when you listen to the media, all of last season, any season up until this season, and I guarantee at some point this year, there's going to be that discussion again. Is Jason Tatum a leader? There was moments, and I'd like to pull clips of those moments, so I've got receipts, right? So then when people are like, oh, Tatum's like, motherfucker, watch this shit. And that to me helps a lot. Tatum went the only guy that went off. Jaylen Brown was solid. I felt like every time he shot a 3, it looked good. He's added some size, looked a little bit more explosive. I'd like to see him be a little bit more decisive in the mid-range, the way he was last year. It's game 1. That's going to come. New York were very good at getting bodies to guys once they penetrated off the dribble. They couldn't really stop what was going on the perimeter. Screening actions were blowing them open. Guys coming off flare screens were just finding space to attack off the dribble. That initial penetration was just far too easy for a team like New York that's meant to be the second best team in the East or third best team in the East. I didn't see it yesterday. They've had a couple of trades. It's going to take them some time to get up to speed. I think they're going to be a real big problem throughout the year. But in terms of yesterday's game, I think they did a good job of getting bodies on guys once they'd penetrated. They didn't really do much to stop the initial penetration. All that goes to say, like, Brown had a couple of times where he probably would have shot a midi last season, and just that split-second decision or indecision meant that he had to find a pass somewhere. But overall, he was fantastic, rebounded well, drove with force. His shots, he was again, knocking down early jumpers. I liked last year where he was this like play finisher for the first quarter of every game. You just knew JB was going to put up 8, 10, 12, 14 points in that first quarter and really set that tone. I can't wait to see that again. Had some possessions guarding Jalen Brunson. Did great, picking up the best player on the opposing team. Did great. Did solid, and we don't have matchup numbers yet. I'm recording this. I'm over in the UK. I'm recording this at 10 a.m. UK time, so 5 a.m. Eastern. Matchup numbers haven't gone up on NBA.com, so I can't tell you statistically how well he did against Jalen Brunson, but I thought he had him. Quite well. Brunson obviously got some buckets up. Brunson ended the game with how many? 22 points, two assists, 1 rebound. That's good. Brunson played well. Knicks offense wasn't the problem. The Knicks did well offensively. 55% from the field, 36.7% from free. The problem was they couldn't stop a cold. But if you were talking about Jaylen Brown defending on Brunson, defending on Bridges, OG, he did great against all of those guys. While we're talking about defense, I do want to point out the cross-matching that was going on early in the game. Jrue Holiday picking up Karl-Anthony Towns, allowing them, there's a pick and roll. One of the reasons for cross-matching, and cross-matching, for anyone that's like, well, what's a cross-match? It's basically purposely putting a small player to guard a bigger player, or a bigger player to guard. Yeah, so Jrue Holiday being purposely tasked with guarding Karl-Anthony Towns is cross-matching. And there's 2 reasons for this, right? It's twofold. First reason is very simple. If Holiday's guarding Towns and Towns runs a 1-5 pick and roll, a 2-5 pick and roll, whatever it may be, and a switch occurs, there's no mismatch, because now Holiday switching on to Brunson or to Hart or to Bridges or to McBride, Dadiet, whoever it may be. Holiday switching, and now we're on a guard-to-guard matchup, and whoever was guarding the 1 is going to switch on to the 5, and then we're going to scram him out of there, or Peel switch him out of there and get a bigger guy to guard the 5, which in this case would have been Towns or Sims or whatever. Usually what you'll do as well is you'll try and set it so you've got a Jason Tatum, a Jaylen Brown type of guy guarding the ball handler going into that pick and roll. So that switch happens, boom. You don't really need to rotate any more than that. You can maintain with what you've got. The other reason is Jrue Holiday is just a beast. If we're being quite honest, he's ridiculously strong, knows how to get underneath guys' hips, can control angles, does a really good job of just disrupting players' rhythms in terms of how they dribble, the rhythm of their dribble, where they're trying to get to on the floor, how often, if they can pick up, if he forces them to pick the ball up, what type of shots they're going to get from there. He's also really good at playing the passing lane. We saw him get a steal out of the passing lane in this game, read it really well, jumped it just as the player went into a passing motion, boom, he's out for the races on transition. So between those 2, and Holiday's not the only guy that cross-matches for Boston, but he was cross-matching in this game. I thought that was a smart choice. It was something that we saw Mazzulla run with last season multiple times, put Jrue on a big, just to take away some advantages, create some advantages of your own. It's in my opinion, a huge part of why Holiday is so important to this team. Defensively, can guard 1 through 5, can make high-level reads, can see plays unfolding just before they get there. Great vocally, getting guys into position. And obviously, to being able to guard 1 through 5 creates these cross-matching opportunities, and it just makes life so much more difficult for a big, because they try and spin off you, they try and bully you a little bit. It's very easy to run up your fouls that way. It's very hard to get a rhythm in terms of your footwork. Are you going to take too many steps? There's a lot that goes into it where Holiday just makes your life shit. And to me, I was really grateful for that. I think Holiday played great. That's it for terms of players. I don't want to go through. Derek White was solid, hit some nice threes, a little bit of limitless range. Hitting a couple. I've been playing a lot of 2K lately. A little bit of limitless range of a couple of those shots. Al Horford looked good considering he only played 1 preseason game. And that brings me to some actions. And if anyone follows me, if you're not following me on social media, X's and O's is kind of my jam. It's the way I enjoy looking at the game, I'm not going to say it's the only way. There's lots of different ways to consume basketball. I like to consume it in a X's and O's kind of methodology. So there was a couple of actions that stood out to me from what we saw last season to some new wrinkles this season, and building on what we saw in preseason. I didn't really record too many podcasts during preseason. I've been trying to plan out my content strategy for this year, making some changes, making some ideas for growing the newsletter. And these concepts here are going to be explored deeper in the newsletter. So the link's in the description. Today's post is free. There's usually 1 or 2 free posts a week, and the rest are behind the paywall, $5 a month. There's always free trials and stuff for you to test that. But the reason I'm saying this is because I want to go into these 2 actions a lot deeper in today's newsletter. The first one was basically a Ricky cut off the roll, man. So a Ricky cut's very simple. You cut into the paint, someone sets a screen, and you cut off that screen back to the perimeter. Usually you're going to cut off the same screener each way. So a general Ricky cut is you cut off the screener to go into the paint. He turns around, sets like a Varigel screen where you set a screen, flip your angle and set re-screen. And that's kind of what happens on a Ricky cut. You come off a screen, get into the paint or near the paint, and then you turn around and you cut straight back towards the perimeter and run your man into that screener. So then you're open to receive the ball and get a shot. Now, the wrinkles for Boston in this were, one, there was no initial screen on the entry cut because they were using the roll man as the Ricky cutter. I don't know why it's called a Ricky. Maybe it's something to do with Ricky Rubio or something, but it's basically just a cut in and a cut back up. That's it. I don't know why it's called what it is, but that's what I've always been taught. And that's how I always recognize it. And the names are never that important, right? Like, it got stressed to me a lot when I was asking a lot of coaches and high-level X's and O's guys questions. The naming isn't important. For me, it's just a way of recognizing things quickly and being like, oh, that's Ricky. Oh, that's 21. And then what the most important thing is what happened on the floor, where were the advantages created, how many advantages were created, and how often can you run that successfully? Was it an entry action? Was it an action to create an opening for your secondary action? Was it an action to get someone to space to get on ball and ISO? Lots of different reasons for running sets more than just scoring the ball. For me, I like this just because it was a wrinkle. So the Celtics went into a coming up transition. Luke Cornett would set an exit screen for Tatum each time. They ran this play 3 times in this game. So an exit screen, Cornett screens for Tatum around the free throw line, around that nail area. Tatum exits, gets the ball on top of the perimeter. From there, Luke Cornett is now technically a roll man because he set a screen. He'd roll into the paint. As he rolls into the paint, the off-ball guard, the 2 guard, would then cut and then set a screen for Cornett to then cut back to the perimeter. So, we could call this a roll Ricky. Maybe it's a shallow ram action. I don't know how you want to call it. To me, it looks more like a ram than anything, but it's got that Ricky cut. So Ricky, ram, shallow. I don't know. Again, the naming don't matter. And if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see I'm putting the play on the screen right now. So Cornett cuts off his roll, rolls to the rim, comes back, rolls to the paint, cuts back off his screener, and then sets that rip screen, that back screen for Tatum in this instance. And now there's some opening, right? Now Tatum can attack off the dribble. He's created a bit of a mismatch. There's a bit of a switch. The Cornett can then re-screen, set a secondary screen, via screen. But it's just a wrinkle that we didn't see last year. We'd see Cornett roll and then get into the dunker spot, roll and then cut out to the weak side slot and try and space the floor there. We didn't really see him cut back, set that screen, pop, set a secondary screen. Just a lot more movement from Cornett. And I wrote about this earlier in the summer, I should say. I wrote about it twice, actually. First time was why Zach Edey could learn from some of the stuff Cornett does as a non-shooting big. I still believe that's true. Watching Edey play against NBA competition is probably a lot less true, but you can always take things from people's games and improve your own. So I wrote about it there, and then I wrote about it after the first Denver Nuggets game in Abu Dhabi, where it's, as a non-shooting big, if you can hang in terms of movement, knowing where to position yourself to provide off-ball spacing despite not being a shooting threat, i.e. the weak side slot, you can thrive as a 5'8" big and knowing how to attack out the short roll, create those short roll passes, knowing when to set veer screens, which is an on-ball screen into an off-ball screen or an off-ball screen into an on-ball screen. Just understanding how to manipulate spacing and how to manipulate defenses while not really offering much floor spacing in terms of scoring gravity goes a long way. And this action really leans into Cornet's strengths of being quite a mobile big, being a really good screener, being a smart screener, being able to be trusted with making the right read out of a short roll, being able to be trusted with knowing where to space the floor. You put all that together with an action like this, and then a high gravity star like Tatum as the ball handler, that's fucking hard to deal with as a defense. Because not only are you having to deal with these two guys, you're worrying about Jrue Holiday, Derek White, Jaylen Brown. Depending who's on the floor, it could be you're worrying about Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser. But there's so many other moving parts, and there's window dressing going on. Guys are spacing in the corners, defenses are stretched out. And now you're dealing with a big that can make reads on the fly and a superstar, if you want to call him that can pretty much do anything the fuck he wants. So when you put all that together, it's tough. It's really tough. And Mazzulla, for me, this was a really good play call from Mazzulla. Smart. Something a little bit different to what we've seen. The entry was the same, that exit screen. We saw a bunch of that last year. From there, just little tweaks to how you get into what you got into last year, just to make things different and create that extra layer of, well, how do we deal with this for the defense? That's good. I like that. The other action that we saw, and again, this will be on the screen, was what's called a Spanoulis action. So a Spanoulis action is and again, there's multiple ways this is run, but a Spanoulis action is a pin down screen in the middle of the floor. So a gut screen, it's called a gut screen because it's in the middle of the floor for a shooter or a ball handler or a high level offensive guy to cut from towards the baseline and then receive a dribble handoff from a big into. So that big, as the DHO occurs, he's going to screen his man. Now, a couple of variations of this is you set a flex screen. So the shooter was initially in the corner and he has to curl all the way up. The other variation is like what the Celtics ran, where the shooter's just somewhere in the middle of the floor, gets that screen, comes up, curls off that DHO from the 5. There's a couple of others. And Spanoulis is called what it's called because it's based on a high-level Greek guy that played, and they used to run this action to him. The Celtics ran a variation of this during preseason, but you couldn't really classify it as Spanoulis because for me, and what I look for when I'm labeling this play is you need that 5, that center being the guy that hands the DHO off. If you don't have that, if it's a 3 or a 2 handing that DHO off, now it's just a gut DHO. It's a different play with different styles of outcomes. And the reason the outcomes are different is because when a big is setting that pin in, the amount of space it creates around the perimeter and the decision-making opportunities that come with it are different than when you're getting a Jason Tatum setting that screen, because now you're probably not looking to create for yourself. You're going to wait to see or drag your dribble out to create room for Tatum. It's just a different, similar action with a different mindset in how you want to get a result is probably the best way to put it. Very similar though. And, these things are naming whatever. But the Celtics ran this 3 times again, something we haven't really seen. They didn't run that flex action that they started these plays with, these flex gut DHOs that they ran during preseason. They ran more of a Spanoulis type action. And again, this is just a wrinkle we haven't seen before. They didn't run it. I think I saw them run it 3 times last year. I clip it every game. I watch every game at least twice. I try and break down the film as much as possible. I try and keep a portfolio of plays and have a bit of a playbook that I can lean on each season. So when I'm doing podcasts, guest appearances, analysis articles for whichever place I'm writing that day, I've got a repository of stuff. And this isn't something I saw them run a lot. I think that Tatum's improved 3-point shooting, the improved decision-making of Jaylen Brown last year in terms of his playmaking has probably allowed this to become more of a potential staple action. Al Horford, just as a DHO guy, is being smart. You've got Cornet that can do the same thing. Even Tillman. I wouldn't really trust Nemi in this action just yet. But there's a lot there. So if you can see it on the screen, you can see what I'm talking about right now. I liked it. I thought it was a nice addition, something new, something fresh. And defenses wouldn't have been expecting it the first or second time. They'll get used to it, and then there'll be some variations. Again, there's a couple of ways you can run this. And then obviously not all plays A play could be named the same thing and look totally different because there's variations. You have to counter what the defense does and yada, yada, yada. But it's fun, right? So I wanted to point those two plays out. Just again, if you want to read about these in deeper and how they affected the defense, watch some annotations of these plays where I draw on the screen and make it look pretty and show you where advantages were. Hit that link down below, CelticsChronicle.com, and sign up. Always appreciated. We're at 1,100 subscribers right now over on the newsletter and it's still growing. I'll be being very present on this YouTube channel moving forward as I try and build this up too. That's pretty much what I had in terms of X's and O's. I've gave you my opinions on the players. So I'm just going to round it out with this. You know, I've been covering this team for about 7-8 years now. Every year is fun for different reasons. There's ups, there's downs every year. Even last season, you know, there was not many downs, but there was still some. I'm really hyped that the season's back. I think that after the summer, in terms of the Celtics played with they played the longest out of every team in the league, apart from Dallas that were there with right to the end with them. Goes into the Olympics. The Olympics were great, hella fun. And then you just hit this dead season, but you're still so pumped from like the championship and you're so pumped from like the Olympics was great. And then boom, there's no basketball for a while. WNBA comes back and I really liked watching the WNBA this year. It just makes you really get pumped to see the team that, see, when I'm watching WNBA, it's great hoops, like high level X's and O's, like technical hoops. These ladies play phenomenal basketball, but I've got no skin in the game. I'm not in it like that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I've been following the Celtics team since '94. I watch every game multiple times. I have done for years, almost a decade. I've got skin in the game. I care, like I genuinely care. So when I'm watching these other games with teams that I'm like, yo, this is fun. I'm watching as more of a casual viewer, watching more as a neutral is probably the better word in this instance. I'm not saying I'm not watching casually. I am watching casually, but I'm just neutral because I don't have a team. I'm not invested like that. So to have the Celtics back, and I hope a lot of you are resonating with this, just like that skin, that emotion, that watching that game for the first, like live or the way I usually do it because of the time difference. I'm a family man. I got shit to do in the mornings. Don't want to be driving after no sleep all night. So I turn off the scores on League Pass. I shut off the notifications on my phone. I shut off social media updates. When I wake up, I watch the game straight away. I woke up at 5 a.m. today, 2 hours before I needed to be up. So I could get the game in, pull my clips, do what I need to do. And then I'm able to talk about it when people on the other side of the world are starting to wake up. So that's and then what I usually do is I watch at 5 and then around about 8:30, once I'm back after doing some driving and stuff, I'll watch it a second time. So when I'm recording this now, I've just finished my second watch. So I've seen the game twice. Feel very confident that I've made enough notes and learned enough lessons. You can never learn everything. I'll probably watch it a third time. And even then, I still wouldn't have spotted everything. And there'll be things that other people notice that will be like, oh man, why didn't I see that? But just in terms of fun, in terms of vibes, I loved it. And I hope that everybody's super happy that NBA basketball's back. More importantly, I hope everybody's super happy that Celtics basketball's back. I'm not really one to ask people to subscribe to a show either, but like if you are still here or if you skip forward a little bit, like show some love. Appreciate it. Just trying to rebuild some stuff that, I've started from scratch with. I'm not used to recording solo, but it's going to be a lot of solo content moving forward. It's going to be fun. I'm going to learn. You're either going to like it or you're not. I'm either going to enjoy it or I'm not. And then we'll pivot depending on how it all goes. I feel like I've done quite well. Done about 30 minutes. Again, it's kind of hard after one game. We can't pull numbers. I've shared some film clips. Gave you some opinions on some players. So I guess the last thing to do is be like, yo, jump in the comment section. Let me know what you thought of the players. Let me know if there was any actions that you liked. Most importantly, let me know if you enjoyed the ring ceremony. And if you just enjoyed the game, were you in the arena? Were you watching at home in a bar with some buddies? Just let me know how you consumed it, man. Because I find that's always so fun how we connect over something that we consume in so many different ways at the exact same time or within a certain time period. It's really interesting to me. So shoot me some comments. Be more than happy to chop it up with all of you. Again, Celtics Chronicles in the comment, in the description. Catch you all in the next day or two. Peace.